Hello and welcome to DavChat for our election coverage today. My central theme is to go vote, that voting is your chess move, vote to advance and vote to protect. So who are you voting to protect today? Are you voting to protect your children, your own safety in public places? Are you voting with thought for the women in your lives whose doctors will be limited in their choices for how they can treat critical medical conditions that do regularly afflict women, including septic uterus, incomplete miscarriages, hemorrhaging, ectopic pregnancies, all manner of conditions that require medical attention, and that medical attention is compromised when Republicans gain power and introduce regressive abortion bans that limit women's ability to save their own fertility and to save their own lives through timely medical intervention. So thanks for joining me. Let's start off with looking at this ad, which focuses on another important issue for decent people who care about the safety of themselves, their families, and their communities.
Well, every time I'm in an open area, in a public place.
I want to think about how completely vulnerable I am while I'm closing my eyes to pray at my...
Here we go.
I want to be fearful every time I'm in an open area, in a public place.
I want to think about how completely vulnerable I am while I'm closing my eyes to pray at my place of worship.
I enjoy practicing semi-annual lockdown drills with 6-year-olds who don't fully understand what's happening.
I like going to the movies and making a mental note of every exit in the theater to plan my escape.
I hope that our set is interrupted by loud percussive sounds that cause the audience to scream in horror and run for their lives.
I want to think of this dumpster as a hiding place for my kid.
I enjoy when the only way a family member can identify their mutilated loved one is by the make of their shoes or a DNA test.
I want to drop the carton of milk and eggs that I just bought and race frantically to a dingy back room where I'll be locked with 14 strangers until the police say it's okay to come out.
I want to celebrate our nation's freedom by worrying that I'll end up bleeding out on the pavement while being trampled by terrified parade cars.
I like that anyone can
easily access
weapons of destruction,
Weapons of war.
Designed to kill the
Greatest amount of people
In the shortest of...
in the least amount of time.
just a little bit longer.
Yeah, so that's an old advertisement, but a powerful one because America is like a swimming pool. And if some states are peeing in the pool at one end of the pool, none of us are free from the war zone dynamic that is pervasive, more intensely concentrated in some areas than others, but everywhere is suffering from gun overproliferation. But today is the day we're going to look to some positive news about getting out the vote and how young people are creating lines at their universities to vote in person today, and other places that are seeing high turnout levels. Now, when there's high turnout, that is good news for Democrats because there are more Democrats than Republicans. It's just a statistical fact, and I'm often greeted with disbelief if I have an in-depth chat with a conservative person because they're convinced, as many people are often convinced, that their worldview is shared more broadly than it actually is. Whereas in the United States, it's broadly accepted by people that more stringent gun laws are necessary, that there should be more common sense gun safety laws, that women should be able to access life-saving medical care, and that they should have bodily autonomy to gatekeep whether or not they wish to proceed with an inadvertent accidental pregnancy or a pregnancy that's the result of coercion, rape, incest, or if they choose to not proceed with the pregnancy for the simple fact of lacking the financial and emotional resources that you need to be able to commit to a pregnancy in good conscience. Because bringing a child into the world when you don't want to inflict your personal circumstances on a child is torture, and having government mandated pregnancies reduces the agency of women to being similar to livestock. And I've seen that meme, I hope you have as well, that says beings that don't have agency over their own reproduction aren't human beings, they're livestock. And that is effectively a lowering of the protected legal status of women as human beings to be able to ask for medical treatment that they want. If they have a cancer diagnosis, to say, yes, please, I'll end this pregnancy so that I can receive cancer treatment like chemotherapy or radiotherapy to maximize my chances of surviving and flourishing in the future. So let's see, what's our next ad? Do we need to watch that ad again? No. Well, no, we remember it. We don't want to be fearful every time we're in an open area in a public place. We don't want to think about how completely vulnerable we are closing our eyes in a place of worship. We don't want to think about practicing lockdown drills with 6-year-olds who don't fully understand what's happening. We don't want to go to a movie theater and be looking at the exits to plan an escape. We don't want to be a musician fearful of being interrupted by percussive noises. We don't want to pass a dumpster and think if that would be a hiding place if we're strong enough to throw our child into a dumpster to protect them from gunfire. We don't want to drop our grocery purchases and run to a dingy back room and hide with strangers for hours until the police say it's okay to come out. We don't want to celebrate July the 4th bleeding out on the pavement while being trampled by terrified parade goers. We don't want anyone to be able to easily access weapons of war designed to kill the greatest amount of people in the shortest amount of time. We don't want that for just a little bit longer. And the only way we can make this world and this nation more like what we want is to vote if we have the right to vote. And I don't, so I'm just here chatting. But let's have a look at Kerry Washington turning out the votes in Philadelphia. And vote like Black people. Black people are less likely to get discouraged or demoralized because they understand the nature of the fight and they understand the extent of constant vigilance, and that you might think you can relax, but somebody will disabuse you of that ability, because racism is an eternal problem for humanity, and conspiracism is an eternal problem for humanity. People whose appetite for stupid conspiracy theories that blame Jews or Black people, or a combination of Jews and Black people and Mexican migrants for the ills of the world, instead of being clear-sighted about problems that empirical evidence says are the cause of problems. So lax gun laws lead to higher homicide rates and higher suicide rates, but we are constantly having to deal with Republicans who say, well, criminals don't obey laws. Then we wouldn't have any laws if that was a genuine homily that held true. If there's no point having laws because criminals by definition disregard laws, then there would be no laws and there would be no legal consequences. But we have laws, we have legal consequences, we have efforts at self-governance by we the people for the people, because laws matter and the rule of law matters and democracy matters. Yay. Kerry Washington's so beautiful. Are they saying we won't back down? Or... They are saying we won't back down. That's amazing. Not even just we won't back down, but we won't black down. It's a commendable demonstration of energy. And I'm reminded this morning by my husband of Obama's speech, in which he described a woman with a gold tooth and a big church hat who was in the practice of chanting. And she would chant to a room, "Fired up." And the response was, "Fired up." She would chant, "Ready to go." And the response was, "Ready to go." And Obama said he felt the cares and the anxieties of the morning slipping away from him, and he began to feel fired up. Fired up, fired up, ready to go, ready to go. And he said, if one voice can change a room, that's how one voice in one room can change a city. And if you can change a city, you can change a state. And if you can change a state, you can change, gosh damn it. If you can change a state, you can change a nation. And if you can change a nation, you can change the world. And there's some things we can change to be responsible stewards of this nation and responsible stewards of this world that we are passing on like a baton to those who are our neighbors, our children, our descendants. This is a shared place, and we have to do so responsibly. And that means being clear-eyed about the threats that we face and energetic in our response to those threats. So our democracy is threatened by people who disregard the results of free and fair elections. Our democracy is threatened by billionaires who pay exorbitant amounts of money to control media narratives, to fill the airwaves, to fill advertising space with manipulative and untrue arguments to distract people from very real problems of climate change, of lax gun laws, of genuine harm coming to people, from more frequent, more severe weather events, from a much higher homicide rate in the United States than in other civilized nations as a consequence of the over-availability of guns, of the intoxication of lethal weapons that people just get obsessed with and people want to use, and the very ability to buy anything you want and go to gun sales and evade background checks. This ability intoxicates people into wanting to use their guns. And Twitch Roboto was trying to find a video of the lady who did a fight speech from about 2 years ago that got you fired up, but you couldn't find it. Yay, my neighbor voted and she sent me a message about it. So I'm very happy. This is one of the most powerful things you can do for democracy today. One of the most powerful things you can do to protect yourself, your loved ones from dangerous developments in America. Text your friends. Say hello, just check in, because the human conscience is very activated by feeling seen. And psychologists have demonstrated this in various ways with research studies that have used a little mirror attached to charity boxes or a depiction of eyes. When people feel seen, even if they have no recollection of even seeing a drawing of eyes or a photograph of eyes or a little mirror reflecting their own eyes back at them, it increases the amount of people who put money in a lollies, in a candy for cash box. You know, there's ones there left to the honor system, take a piece of candy, put in a dime or two. I don't know how much they are in America, but in Australia, where I spent my formative years, the candy was 20 cents usually. Leave 20 cents, take a piece of candy. The proceeds go to a charity. described on the box. But psychologists use those types of boxes left in break rooms, left in places, and found that the rate of theft of candy taken but without there being a commensurate amount of money in the box by just drawing eyes or putting a mirror so that people felt observed. So connect to your friends. Make your friends feel observed today. Make them feel that human connection to you. Text them. It's election day. Do you want to say you're going to vote? You don't even have to say you're going to vote. Show them what you're doing. Because if you're voting, if you've already voted, be like, yay. Let them know they mean something to you, because you highlighting what you've done is a gentle prod that they must also do the same thing. It highlights the significance of this election, because like all elections are fights of protecting the interests of the people against vested interests that enjoy dominating you and exploiting you. Every election, whether it's the political parties have switched as they did after 1963 when Lyndon LBJ passed the Civil Rights Act, and a lot of the racist Dixiecrats switched to loyalties to the Republican Party. So the Republican Party then became more invested in cultivating the loyalty of racists. And the Democratic Party became the party of defending civil rights to a larger degree. Let's watch some more videos. MAGA Republicans want women arrested for having an abortion. This is what this looks like. So here you go. This was shared by Eric Swalwell, Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell. Oh, try again.
You're weird. He is weird, but cute. Gross.
Mary Anderson,
Yes.
I have a warrant for your arrest.
Arrest for what?
Penal Code 243 violation. Unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
You gotta be kidding me.
That is my personal business.
That's for the courts to decide, ma'am. Your medical records have been subpoenaed, and Dr. Landry's already in custody.
No, my God, you can't
And
just.
you will have to submit to a physical examination.
What? By who?
No one's touching
Sir,
my wife.
get back! Ma'am, turn around. Put your hands behind your back. Now.
Why is this happening? Love you. Hey there.
We're just enforcing the law here.
Elections have consequences. Vote Democrat on November 8th. Stop Republicans from criminalizing abortion everywhere. Protect women's rights and freedom. Please don't do this. Please.
Well, that's hardcore. Whew, I'd seen that before without the sound on, but I hadn't seen it with the sound up. It's amazing how the extra humanity of hearing a child's voice or a woman's voice in fear, or a police officer's voice in stern authoritativeness say, we're just enforcing the law. If you vote in legislators who have indicated they will pass a national abortion ban at 15 weeks, and you get an 18-week scan, 20-week scan, your baby's lacking vital organs and won't survive, and you don't want to spend months of your life carrying a baby to term that can't survive, and you opt to have an abortion. Or if you have a D&E procedure, if you have a dilation and evacuation procedure, and it's determined that maybe the doctor went too far and your life wasn't sufficiently at risk, they should have waited till you were closer to death before they performed that procedure. Then your doctor could face legal consequences, and you could be facing that. Well, watch it again.
You're weird. He is weird,
cute. Gross.
Mary Anderson,
Yes.
I have a warrant for your arrest.
Arrest for what?
Penal Code 243 violation. Unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
You gotta be kidding me.
That is my personal business.
That's for the courts to decide, ma'am. Your medical records have been subpoenaed, and Dr. Landry's already in custody.
No, my God, you can't
And
just.
you will have to submit to a physical examination.
What? By who?
No one's touching me.
Sir,
My wife-
get that. Ma'am, turn around. Put your hands behind your back. Now.
Why is this happening? Love you. Hey there.
We're just enforcing the law here.
Elections have consequences. Vote.
So, of course, it's also important to remind people that these laws impact people regardless of what color they are, even though laws of that nature are often used disproportionately to arrest, to prosecute, to investigate Black women, women in lower economic groups, women of low income, women who can be targeted by someone who has a grudge against them because it's a legal gray area. Was that abortion that you had just a medical procedure to save your life, or was it, or was your doctor exaggerating the risk to your life? So if your boss hates you and you refused his sexual advances and he suspects that that bump in your tummy that then went away after a while was the result of not just a miscarriage, but an abortion, or he wants you to go to jail, anybody could report you to the authorities. And I'm not just talking about red states, because you can't be complacent in a blue state. If Republicans gain control of Congress, as they may do, if the Republicans win this election, then anybody in any state. Did you have a miscarriage at 18 weeks, or is your uterus now the site of a potential crime scene and you can be investigated for negligent homicide? Did you drink more than 1 cup of coffee a day? Should you in fact have had no coffee? What did you do to make that miscarriage happen? Maybe you didn't think you did anything, but maybe your subconscious didn't want that baby, and you took action on that by eating a piece of brie. Well, maybe you'll have to answer for that in court. So Twitcher Rubidoo's got a good point that maybe it's time to prepare for the underground abortion railroads in red states, but also blue states, unless people are prepared to do everything they can today to turn out the vote. I'm going to play this song.
I don't care who you are or where you work. Get your
Florida, it's Trina, the Queen of Miami, the Diamond Princess, making sure you guys go out and vote for Val Demings.
Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. today, and you can still drop off your ballot at your nearest polling location.
Everyone needs to get off the sidelines and vote in this election. Period. Our civil rights, our reproductive rights, our healthcare, our freedom, and the future of our democracy are on the line.
Val is a fighter, and she will go to Washington and fight for not only every Floridian, but every single American.
Sometimes the election is won just by 300 votes.
Florida, now is the time to make sure your voice is heard for Val Demings.
Make sure that only you speak for you. Because when we vote, you win.
So ensure your voice is heard and vote for Val Demings for U.S. Senate today.
Bum 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 dang a dang dang a ding a dong ding. Vote for Val Demings.
I don't want to say anything discouraging about Florida. Go Florida. Turn out, please, today. That would be amazing. Ron DeSantis had a lot of penetration with his strongman posturing about how he defies the experts. When he has put a lot of Floridians in danger, and he has created a lot of hardship, watched a lot of Floridian insurance companies go under. Yeah, he's not going to be a successful Republican contender against Trump, because Trump's better and has more practice at going all out fascist. Ron's an aspirational fascist who hurts a lot of people, but Trump can pull out his old bullying tactics, and he's well versed at that. So he called Ron DeSantis Ron DeSanctimonious. Some conservatives got their knickers in a knot, and it just kind of highlights that he can bring down any Republican candidate he wants, because his base are the base of Republican voters, and people still revere him in that weird, deceived way that you revere someone who you think is a successful businessman and who you think is protecting the status quo of white male ascendancy at the top of a hierarchical pyramid structure. If that's what you want and that's what you like, Trump's your guy. And even if Ron DeSantis shows promise at perpetuating white supremacist and white male power, he's not the central figure for as many people. Trump still outnumbers Ron DeSantis in loyal fans amongst that subset of people who still look to Republicans for validation and support. All right. Somebody else notes that the game plan for a lot of Republicans in the MAGA, as evidenced in the MAGA echo chamber, is that they're claiming that they are totally going to win every single election in this country by a landslide unless Democrats cheat. And that's their game plan. They'll all declare victory tonight. And when the mail-in ballots are counted and they lose, they'll contest the elections in court systems and demand recounts. And they're going to do that all over the country. So just to prepare ourselves for that as well. When Democrats win, Republicans are going to not just cry about it. Republicans are going to try to gum up the works with lengthy legal challenges, etc., because Trump pioneered that as a strategy. And even though it didn't win to overturn Biden's election victory, they go, okay, that's a first try. We'll perfect and strengthen that strategy by practicing it some more. Claim the other team is cheating. Say it with our whole chest. We won. Everybody we talk to supports Trump. Everybody we talk to is voting Republican. Therefore, it is not possible that we are outnumbered. We keep telling ourselves how right we are and how morally right we are. We keep telling ourselves that climate change is a fake threat, that COVID's a fake threat, that the real threat is from drag queens, that the real threat is from 1 in a million participants in girls' sport being a trans athlete who just wants to live their life with a gender presentation that they feel authentic in, that they feel comfortable in a challenging world, in a world that is mentally, emotionally challenging for a lot of people. Let trans kids be themselves. Let them dress the way they want. Be cautious with medical interventions. I can agree with that, but don't threaten to bomb children's hospitals that offer medical treatment steps for children who have passed certain bars to be able to qualify for medical intervention, if that's what they're asking for, if that's what they claim will help them live comfortably and happily in this world, if that's what will let them live. It is a difficult world. It is a difficult world to be a child in. It is difficult to come to terms with the decades of underreaction to the threats of climate change. It is difficult to grow up in the schooling system and learn the science of climate change and planetary heating and say, oh, but people didn't do something about it. Human beings aren't capable of responding rationally to solve problems. People just would rather lie to themselves and stay comfortable. And people are so gripped by inertia. It's hard to come to terms with adults who teach you in schools, who claim to be rational beings, who want the best for you and care for you and love you, and then come to terms with the absolute paucity of action with regard to that particular problem. So there are people working on it, but it's a big intellectual mouthful to swallow, how difficult it is for humans to collectively pull their fingers out and take steps to address problems that affect all of us to differing levels, but all of us are impacted by climate change, by global warming, by planetary overheating, by calamitous levels of climate impact. So yes, I thought this was a good meme. Republicans will act accordingly and complain about any losses they have, and not just complain, but complain so vociferously that they hope to impact the referees at any level. They hope to impact election officials. They hope to impact judges. It's not just grievance as a response, it's grievance as a strategy for consolidating power. It's a strategy for gaining power. When you can't gain power through legitimately appealing to people with the logic of your arguments, with the popularity of your policies, you can lie and you can make vociferous complaining a strategy that is subscribed to with different degrees of sincerity at different levels. So there's your basic MAGA who will pass a lie detector test that yes, their complaints are genuine, that the election was stolen. And there's the people who wouldn't pass a lie detector test because they know it's not true, but they're also not really that ashamed of it, so they won't necessarily fail the lie detector test. They're just more likely to because they know they are lying. They know they are gaming the system. They know they are inciting the rubes to violence, to antagonism, as a strategy to change conditions to suit them, to get illegitimate access to power. I'm gonna write that down. Grievance as a strategy to gain illegitimate access to power. Grievance as a strategy to gain illegitimate access to power. Okay. What's next? Why is Katy Perry trending? Oh, activity for those in line to vote. If you're in line to vote and you're watching this, go through your contact list, ask every like-minded person if they have a plan to vote today. If they say they've already voted, ask them to contact 5 friends about voting. And if they say no, tell them why you are waiting in line. I might do that right now. Somebody's told me they voted. Awesome. And message. Somebody shared a voting I voted sticker with me and message 5 like-minded friends about why you, about that sticker too, so you can lead by example. And then I might put in a sort of hedging word there so it doesn't feel like I'm bossing her around. And maybe, so I'll say maybe, ... So I can just introduce this idea to her. She can choose to do it. And maybe, ... Message 5 like-minded friends. Stick it to help lead by example. If you feel like it. Her friends are probably voting, but you can't take anything for granted. The thing about getting out the vote effectively is to push forward with that human contact, with that friendly attention. Or friendly attention. It's not even insistence. It's friendly attention. Hello, what are you up to today? I am voting. I am in line to vote. Now, let's listen, because this is a good get out the vote strategy. If you're watching and you're trying to find that motivation today, Trump says he will be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November the 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. Now, one structural advantage we have, actually not structural, one dynamic that's in Dems' favor with Trump making this announcement yesterday that he's going to make an announcement pertaining to running as a candidate in 2024. He's doing it because he wants to exert pressure on prosecutors not to indict him or to be scared of indicting him, scared of looking political, scared of attracting a storm of criticism from conservatives and Republicans, that they are that it's politically motivated to pursue justice with regards to all of the evidence of Trump crimes, infinite Trump crimes. So Trump used to be useful to the Republican Party to a degree in turning out the vote, particularly amongst low information white voters who don't have that much opportunity in life, who haven't necessarily pursued educational pathways, or who feel limited by their bad choices. But Trump held out the promise for them of entrenching white advantage, of making it a tick in their corner, making it a coach on their side, so that they wouldn't have to compete with what they see as the injustice of affirmative action. They are afraid of competing with women in the workforce and people of color in the workforce and Black men in the workforce. If there are diversity, a push for diversity, a push to redress the racist exclusion of Black people from opportunities. They want the gatekeeping gates to be reinstalled. They want the wall to be built around good jobs. When Trump says build the wall, you know what they hear? Not just build the wall and keep out migrants. They hear build a wall against a commitment to be more inclusive than in the past. They want to build a wall to keep out any change that involves ending discrimination against Black candidates for the good jobs. They want that discrimination to be maintained. Build a wall to preserve discriminatory hiring practices. Build a wall to preserve white advantage. The most potent, notable thing I'll say all day, that's the wall they want. And some of them, the more respectable Trump voters, though, some of the more respectable Republicans may be a little uneasy about what happened when Trump acted like a despot baby and incited people to attack the Capitol and incited his most rabid followers to injure and ruin the lives of police officers, 4 of whom took their own lives in the mental distress of the days following that attack. One officer, Brian Sicknick, who was killed by the stress of that day, the stress of being exposed to toxic irritants, chemical weapons that were deployed against him and his fellow officers as they sought to protect the Capitol. Brian Sicknick had 2 strokes. Already did. I'm going to tell her she's wonderful, because you should reward people. You are wonderful. There you go. All right. Maybe I'll send her a link to this broadcast right now. She can see that I am also doing things. And then I'll say, shout out to my friend. Share. Do. Copy. All right, let's listen to Trump announce that he's.
And I would say, in the strongest way, it's a country-saving election, specifically including the election of all the people that I'm going to name. I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. And I would say, in
Okay,
the strongest
so that was
way, a
Trump's announcement. Let's make it bigger.
election, specifically including.
Twitter's fired a lot of
in the
people, so it's not that
strongest
surprising
way,
to be glitchy,
It's
is
a
it?
country-saving election, specifically including the election of all the people that I'm going to name. I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. And I would say, in the strongest way, it's a country-saving
Yeah,
election.
important to watch him at least a little bit. It's not just spreading his propaganda. What it's doing is putting that memory into people. What was it like when Trump was president? How stressful was that? Having a volatile despot in charge who kept lying, people, who kept telling lies, and who kept inciting violence against Asian Americans, at destroying the manufacturing sector by lying to people about what a tariff is. A tariff is a form of tax. The media did not do its job and explain the truth to people. Trump was like, yeah, tariffs are just the way I hurt other countries and defend America. No, a tariff made American goods less competitive. He put the tariff on Chinese goods so that American importers had to pay this tax to Trump's administration. They had to pay taxes on imported goods. And American businesses import a lot of goods that are manufactured in China. It didn't or component parts that then are further manufactured in America. So it really hurt the manufacturing industry. And Americans were not told about this. There was a contraction of the manufacturing industry in 2019. It was beginning to be reported on. Trump wanted to get on top of it, so he was trying to write a new trade deal with China so that he could brandish something at the easily distracted media and say, I fixed everything, I've got this trade deal. And the media would say, both sides. We've reported that Trump we reported like a little bit that Trump maybe lies about what a tariff is and lies about the impact of tariffs, lies about the economic impacts of this. But on the other hand, we can say that's what Democrats claim. And then we'll say Trump claims that this trade deal will fix everything and that it's wonderful. And they'll say that these people claim, and they will fail to interrogate which of those two people groups of people are blatantly lying. And the blatant lies were Trump. And because the media did not do their job to an adequate level, it was harder to reach a consensus, harder to denounce somebody for lying, because every effort that little people made to say he's lying, Republicans would just adopt as a strategy and say, no, you're lying. You're the bigger liars. You're lying about a hoax that you claim is a disease. It's all a lie. And the lies were mutually contradictory. The lies were various. The lies were not coherent. They just appeal to people who like to contradict others. They appeal to the contrarian nature that all of us have, but some of us indulge it more. Some of us have more of an appetite to indulge our contrarian impulses, some of us have more of an appetite to indulge our racist, basest, tribalistic impulses. We're all marinated in racist ideas, regardless of our skin color. Some of us are more prepared to indulge those ideas and to perpetuate those ideas, and to blind ourselves to those ideas and to fail to do the work. So it's incumbent on people who've done at least a little bit of the work to call ourselves out and to call others out and say, do more of the work. This is part of the human condition. You can never relax on your laurels. You always have to work to do better, to be working towards a more perfect union with your fellow men and women. And children, let's not leave children out of this. Children are a constant work. I saw someone wear a shirt that said, go to therapy so the kids don't have to. Adults cannot rest on their laurels as being perfectly formed human beings. We have to do work and acknowledge that trauma is part of life, and you've got to heal the bits of you that need healing so that you've got to fill your bucket so that you have it in you to give, so that you're not consumed by bits of your own unaddressed pain. That's work, and I enjoy accepting that work, because when you fight it, you're in denial about what you need to do to be your best self and to live your best life in loving, giving relationships with the people around you. All of us have that in common, that we all need to do the work. We all need to work. Republicans, grievance over policy. What a great meme. Complain, don't fix. But complain to get advantage, to complain as a power collection strategy. Oh, that's relatively succinctly put for me. Complaining as a power collection strategy. As a power-taking strategy? Yep. Can't just complain about the media either. We have to learn how to ask for what we want and not just complain that it's not being given to us. It's unfortunate that we have to do that, but it is what it is. You have to do it. You have to meet people where they are. You have to meet the media where it is, which is why Twitter was so useful, because people could communicate with journalists and say, this is not good enough. Why aren't you reporting on this? Why aren't you using the word lie? Why do you keep saying Trump claims and then repeat his claims that are outlandish lies? Why are you doing that with a straight face? Why are you refusing to add any context that says we all know this is not true? Verifiable evidence states this is not true. Trump claims outlandishly that the sky is red. That would have been more responsible as a journalistic practice. Trump claims that he didn't just have his administration rule to separate parents from children as a deterrent strategy for migration. No, Trump did do that. So when he says claims, I have to say Trump claims, in contrast to evidence, that he did not separate children from babies, that his chief of staff, John Kelly, did not contribute to the order that mandated the separation of babies and infants and children and pre-teenagers and teenagers from the adults who were accompanying them as caregivers. All right, so we saw Trump. Nice little voting sign. That's a sticker to bring up. I'll get off this broadcast and then I'll start another one again soon. But closing with a nice hopeful thing for now. There has never been a line at my polling place in the 5 years I've been voting there. I think this is Philadelphia. Vote blue today. Look at that as a line where there previously has not been a line. That suggests women are turning out to vote. That suggests Democrats are turning out to vote, because guess what? There are more Democrats. There are more registered Democrats than registered Republicans on average across the entirety of the United States. Look at the early vote. per Target Early, which is a website recording the affiliated party of people, the registered party of people in states that record party registration. Model Party Democrat, 17.1 million recorded votes in 2018 in the early voting period. 2020, 43 million votes. And that was 48% of all people who early voted. In 2022, it's 20 million, 50% of those who have early voted. And the Republican share, 2018 was 45%, down to 40% in 2020, and now, 40.9%, and now 39.3%. So that's a fall off in the percentage of the early vote that is Republican. And now part of this is that Trump has abused the concept of early voting to his to the Republican voters who give him any credence. But also, we can speculate that there is a loss of enthusiasm amongst respectable Republicans who look at January the 6th and say, that seems a little radical. The Republicans who look at the violence committed against 130 police officers and say, I can't just stick to my whole usual Republicans are great, Democrats are destructive. That was some Republicans not just being destructive, that was from some Trump loyal Trump supporters doing his bidding and trying to take hostage or kill US legislators in an effort to undo the results of the election in a blatant coup attempt. And more evidence has come out about that. The people who watched along, a lot of them would have been Democrats, but some Republicans who took a curious interest in what are these witnesses saying, would have heard evidence that Trump sat watching television, that people in his inner circle, that Casey Hutchinson said he was happy. He said, let my people in through the mags, i.e. don't stop them by frisking them for weapons through weapons checking magnetometers. Do not do metal detectors on my people. They're not going to fire at me. They're not going to hurt me. Trump wasn't worried about being impacted by MAGA violence. The rest of us are. And some Republicans can see that. So even if they can't bring themselves to turn out and vote for a Democratic candidate, some of them can. Some of them will reject Trumpism and reject the violence and misconduct and bad policies of currently espoused by the Republican Party. But some of them will just stay home. So if there's a drop-off in the intensity of Republican voters, politics is a margins game. Some of them will be all in on Tucker Carlson lies about how the real threats are open borders. Migration to the United States is a product of enthusiasm for the greatness of America, the attributes of America that are great. The left isn't negative about America. Look at how far Obama went being positive and saying, we can do great things together. Look how far Democratic candidates have gone by saying, we're not perfect, but together we can do amazing things. Are we fired up? Are we ready to go? Let's do those great things. So yes, I find it plausible that a margin of respectable Republicans who pride themselves on not just watching Fox News, who read the papers, that even with all the misconduct and underreporting by mainstream media on the destructive potential of Republican candidates, on the destructive potential of Trump and Trump allies, the harms that they have caused and the intensifying harms that they promise to cause going forwards, as they promise to to trash America's financial reputation by failing to raise the debt ceiling unless they get what they want. They'll be like, we'll make it the Democrats' fault for America to crash and burn with its financial system unless they do what we ask them to do, like not spend any money on infrastructure. We'll ask them to cause harm to people. We want there to be more harm available for people to be in so much pain that they can't think straight about who's doing this to them and who's the causative agent for this, and to punish Joe Biden and the party in power in the administrative branch of government and fire Joe Biden in 2024, or fire the Democratic Party, whoever's running for a Democratic candidate for president. If Republicans get control of Congress, they will do as much as possible to block any helpful legislation, to cause as much harm as possible, because people in pain are more susceptible to propaganda against scapegoated minority groups. People who can't think straight because they are so tired from trying to work multiple jobs to put food on the table have an additional vulnerability opened up for them by that pseudo-populistic style of governance. All right. Oh, and we've got one vote left. Vote. That is how we bring hope back to this nation. One day left, folks. Hope is on the ballot, says Jamie Harrison, and tomorrow we have an opportunity to make hope a reality for Americans across the country, but only if we vote. Go to iwillvote.com and help us elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Now let's watch.
The superpower for the Democratic Party is hope. Democrats, we hope and believe that our better days are ahead of us and not behind us. Hope is on the ballot. You should be able to live the American dream, regardless of your background, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your gender identity, who you love, how you love, who you pray to. That is the hope that the Democratic Party fights for each and every single day. If you are really serious about hope, then the only thing that you can do to make that hope real is vote. Vote, vote, vote. That is how we bring hope back to this nation.
iwillvote.com. Okay, that's good. That's good. Oh, thank you, Craig, for retweeting my broadcast. There we go. Thank you. That helps. That helps. I'm here chatting away. I'll check out why Katy Perry is trending though. I'm hoping it's because she voted. Ew. Katy Perry really voted for Republican? Oh. Oh, yeah. Gross. That's a well, isn't he a Democrat now? But he is effectively a Republican. Caruso, is he a Republican? Probably is a Republican. No, he changed his registration to Democrat. He's trying to run for mayor of heavily Democratic Los Angeles, but he is a billionaire. And he is somebody who used to be a Republican. And some celebrities are clearly just buying into billionaire loyalty. And her fans are trying to pretend that she was watching Peppa Pig. But that's not a Peppa Pig screen. That is voting. She has no time to politics, so please respect her privacy. Yeah, no. She voted for a former Republican running as a Democrat candidate for Los Angeles. Ads. Are people just learning Katy Perry is trash? Was the queer baiting and exploitation of the gay community not a big enough clue for you all? Katy Perry went from I kissed a girl and I liked it to I'm voting for a lifelong Republican billionaire and I liked it. Yeah. Midterm voter turnout hit a 40-year high of 49% in 2018, and those records are being broken now. We can look at a little bit of statistics about that. Tom Bonnier is an election analyst, CEO of Target Smart, co-founder of the Clarity Campaign. All right, what did he say? Registered Democrats outnumber GOPs by 95,000 votes cast amongst mail ballots returned as of yesterday. The final number will be bigger. This is specifically in Philly. If Philly is counting slower than other counties, expect Dr. Oz, Mr. Oz, to have a huge early margin in the count and for Philly to slowly chip away. So yes, be prepared for Republicans to be celebrating a win ahead of time because that is their strategy. Never forget that Trump was trying to announce he'd won the presidency at 2 a.m. in the morning after the presidential election of 2020. Never forget that that is a strategy to claim victory early, to then better create, to prime your supporters with that lie in order to make them then angry as more votes are counted and that lead evaporates. It's a natural point of counting more votes to get a correct total and not just go, oh, the first 10 votes I pulled out of this box says Trump won, so we'll go with that. You have to count all the votes from all the people. It is anti-democratic to disenfranchise all the votes from all the early voters just because those voters typically are counted after the in-person votes have counted. You cannot disenfranchise all the American citizens who voted using a legitimate method of voting, to vote by mail or to vote early, in-person early voting. No wonder he keeps railing and saying this a problem with mail-in voting. He's seeding his story. He's seeding that false narrative, that power-grabbing narrative, that violence-inciting narrative of saying, I won, you count in-person votes first, and the other votes are illegitimate. If you voted by mail, it's not the best way, therefore it's illegitimate. And I win if you only count the in-person votes. Those are Americans voting early. Those are Americans voting early in person or by mail. Those are American citizens who deserve a vote in this democracy. And it is only by respecting the strength of that democracy and respecting the commitment of those voters to have their voice, to endorse the candidate with the most merit. It is respect their intention and respect their energy and their action in coming to the polls and finding some way to request a mail-in vote, to go to the effort of signing their name and dating it and doing all those things properly, to jump through all those hoops that the Republicans are trying to make smaller and smaller and more difficult to fit through. Does your signature match your signature over your whole life, your recorded signature? Did you make sure you dated the inner envelope and the outer envelope? They throw everything they can at the wall to reduce the number of voters because more voters means more Democratic candidates win. Apparently in Detroit, Philly, and Milwaukee 2 years ago in 2020, there were various bad hot takes that said there was an underperforming black vote, and it didn't hold up. They just, more votes had to be counted. The final count in Detroit, Biden beat Trump by 865,000 votes in Detroit, nearly identical to Clinton's vote margin win of 189 vote margin in 2016. So the vote count will take a long time in many places, and often it is the cities that take the longest. That's the greatest population density. They have the most votes to count. The early results are very incomplete, and in some cases, it will take a week or more to count all the votes. We got to start a hashtag already. Count all the votes. Respect voters. Count all the votes. We can't let Trump and intimidate election officials out of counting the votes. We can't we can't cede argumentative space to people arguing stop the count. And they will be, because that's their strategy. They've flagged it already, so we need to start preparing already. When they say stop the vote, what are we going to say? Continue the vote. Count all the votes. Count all the votes. Let Americans vote. Let all American votes count. Let all American votes count. Because I'll always argue it's not Americans, is it? They'll be like, it's only illegal immigrants voting by mail. It's a pretty nonsensical argument, but you know they're making that argument. And why are they so susceptible to these lies? I think historically, the US pitted itself against communism. So children are taught in school, communism's bad. We are the binary choice opposite of that. We are capitalism. Capitalism is good and perfect because communism is bad and terrible. And so you still have people that will, those that can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Communism's bad. That's not an absurdity. It's bad. Don't adopt it. Don't advocate for it. Shut up, tankies. You're dumb. Ahistorical. That's a more polite way of saying you're dumb. You lack knowledge of history. Communism always leads to mass slaughter. Communism always leads to a centralized consolidation of power. It is a way of promising equality to a species that uses competition to give itself energy to do things. And you eliminate competition. You say everybody's so equal, you'll all get equal things, and the state will allocate to you an equal portion of everything. That dehumanizes us. Communism strips people's ability to prosper, to compare themselves to others, and to strive in relation to what they see around them, to use input from their eyes and ears to set a bar for themselves and seek to jump over it. That is how humans motivate themselves, how they rise each day and recommit to the task of bettering themselves and with the flow-on effect of bettering the lives of everyone around them. Capitalism is a better harness for human impulses and human energies, but it has to have safety guards. It has to have democratic guardrails. It has to have oversight. It has to have legislation. Because if you've ever been victim of somebody who is greedy, then you will understand that heads of corporations or executives, corporate executives, can get single-minded in a pursuit of profit and can abandon their shared humanity. They can abandon principles of care and concern for others. They can start saying it's more profitable if we just pollute the river. It's, people might die or get cancer, but we'll maximize the amount of profit we can derive from our activities. You need an environmental authority to say, well, actually, no, just it might cut into your profits a bit, but you have to responsibly deal with with the toxic byproducts of your product manufacturing processes. You have to have guardrails. You have to have oversight. You have to have checks and balances on corporate power, because unchecked capitalism is harmful, and you can't just hope that the harm will fall on other people. You can't just use your anxiety to push out of mind what happens to people who live near factories, or what happens to the asthmatic children who live near corporations where environmental safeguards aren't enforced. They are humans and they share this country with you. You have to be good at acknowledging our shared earth. That is your task as a human being, or you are a bad steward of and a bad legacy keeper. You're a bad oath keeper if you say, I'm just about maximizing my good feelings in this moment, and I don't care what happens to other people, and I don't care about the condition of the planet left to my children, and I don't care about those with asthma. You're a bad citizen if you restrict your sphere of influence and caring to only your immediate circle, because ultimately your immediate circle aren't protected as well. And your immediate circle might suffer from Republicans in office, might be a victim at a mass shooting event, might be a victim of Republican misconduct in some way or other, might be a woman hemorrhaging and in need of a D&E procedure that is now suddenly contentious, legally gray area. Doctors have to delay treatment until your daughter's life is more significantly at risk. This is a weird election. Don't try to read too much into early results from one or two races. Not to call out Carville, but this was at 8:26 p.m. on election night 2018 when he said there wouldn't be a blue wave, and then Dems picked up 41 seats. Oh yeah, the blue wave in 2018, people said there wasn't a wave, and then it didn't even make that many headlines because it was a slow curl of a blue wave. And as the votes were counted over days following the election, it became more obvious that Democrats were picking up a bunch of seats. If Republicans get too many seats in Wisconsin, they'll have a supermajority. They'll be able to veto anything suggested by Democrats, and Republican and residents of Wisconsin will be hurting as a consequence. Women will be hurting. Women will die. I mean, to be fair and clear-eyed about it, women will die everywhere where Republicans have extra access to power because their abortion bans elevate the legal standing of a fetus or a zygote at the expense of women who are capable of pregnancy. They elevate the legal protections for non-sentient humans at the expense of sentient citizens, because women have we don't have tiny little hands and feet. We don't have an electrical impulse that you can call a heartbeat at 6 weeks. We're not tiny and cute. We're not this big, but we have people we're responsible for caring about. We're a mother, we're a wife, we're friends, we're sisters. We have responsibilities in this world, and if you kill us, it is very different to terminating the existence of a zygote, because whilst that zygote might be loved and cared and wanted for by a parent who's willing to continue a pregnancy, a woman who's not willing to continue a pregnancy has more worth in their life. They don't deserve to have their life put at risk. They don't deserve to be branded a criminal. They don't deserve to be put in jail for having the temerity to say, I am not ready to bring a child into the world. I am not willing to bring a child into the world. I say no. Or in the case of many women who want to have pregnancies but who suffer from miscarriages and from miscarriage complications that require abortion as a procedure to save the life of a woman. And women die from ectopic pregnancies that are undertreated or delayed in treatment. Women die from not having a dilation and evacuation procedure because it's potentially contentious, because a dying septic fetus still has a detectable faint heartbeat. It's not going to survive, but Republicans will mandate that dying, fading fetal heartbeat be preserved with more fervor than the chances of survival for a living, breathing woman who's existed in this world, who has people who care for her, who cares for others. Over the continuation of an electrical impulse in a potential child that is not yet breathing in this world, that is not yet loved and wanted and valued and full of responsibilities and full of memories and hopes and dreams. fetus doesn't have hopes and dreams yet. An unborn baby at 28 weeks can hear sounds and can feel pain and can begin to store the memory of speech sounds in their mind and can distinguish between their parents' voice that they hear frequently and other people's voice. This is true. But people don't have abortions at 28 weeks for fun. Abortions at 28 weeks are a medical emergency response. If you're enjoying watching, good. Message your friends. Tell them if you voted. Ask them if they voted. Make that warm human connection that bonds us. Strengthen those connections. Do you have a candidate you're excited to go out and support? And when you vote today, this is a good point, please support the election workers. Please thank the election workers. Show them you appreciate their service to our democracy even more than the hatred that they get from the election deniers through their threats and intimidation. This is true. Election workers have been quitting left, right, and center because of the escalating fascist-style campaign of threats and intimidation to deter them, to make them quit so that Trump supporters can take their place, and Trump supporters are more primed to break the law in service of a man they believe fervently often has been wronged. They cannot conceive of an America in which there are more Democrats than Republicans because they have been lied to. They have been told they are dominant, that they outnumber Democrats, that their worldview is valid, that it's the truth that COVID's a hoax, that climate change is a hoax, that they possess these insights, that they have the courage of their convictions, that they are willing to plump for conspiratorial racism, and that they have an appetite for believing all of Donald Trump's lies, that they're willing to keep saying, doesn't matter that he lost 60 court cases, he won. Doesn't matter that the Supreme Court wouldn't even hear his arguments because there was no presentable evidence. They are suckers for Trump, and they are suckers for their own ego preservation tactics, so that they don't want to admit they were wrong. They don't want to reconsider what they've decided is common sense established fact. Something positive from the Midas touch. Current early voter turnout for Democrats is surpassing expectations. We need to keep this energy up. Every vote counts. That's good. Yeah, we watched that ad. Let's watch some students voting on campus in Michigan. Young people in Michigan and across the country are fired up and ready to turn out. Young people lining up to vote. Thank you, young people. Message your friends. Politico had a poll. They said it's an outlier on this question, showing support for Democratic congressional candidates at 48%, 5 points above support for Republican candidates. Well, that's freaky. That's not right. So Politico got a positive poll for Democrats and said it can't possibly be true, because they are trying to push that narrative down people's throat. If you care about the election, then yeah, everybody cares about it and everybody's voting Republican, and they try to inflate and foreground that false narrative of it's a choice for Republicans if you care about inflation. If you care about the economy, you will vote Democrat. Republicans are terrible at managing the economy, and they have a massive incentive to make the economy worse prior to the 2024 elections, and they have no principles to take care of you. Their principles are all lined up like ducks in a row to say, help Trump get reelected, help a Republican candidate of any description get reelected, by making things worse for people to blame Democrats, because the media is on their side. They won't say who's actually to blame. They'll say a majority of people think Democrats are to blame. So they'll just start saying Democrats are to blame. People who don't like the current circumstances are going to vote for Republicans. Whether it's true or not, they'll keep saying it to try and make it happen. Trying to make fetch happen, trying to make inflation the Democrats' fault, because some people falsely believe it's the Democrats' fault when inflation is a product of COVID mismanagement by Trump. Trump massively impacting the ability of public health officials worldwide to contain the pandemic by destabilizing public health messaging with his false claims that the pandemic was a hoax, with his false claims that masks were not effective, with his secrecy about his own vaccination status. He messed that up. Putin, his ally and friend, was emboldened by Trump's support and invaded Ukraine. That illegal invasion of Ukraine has messed up supply lines. Those are principal drivers of inflation. And Democrats have strategies to reduce that inflation and reduce the burden, and to reduce gas prices, and to help families. So vote, get out and vote. Vote for Democrats today. Vote blue. Message your friends. Make that warm connection to people you know to remind them that today is important. Thank you for listening, and talk to you again soon.